The dawn was breaking over the village of Carantan in Normandy on June 7, 1944. The smell of gunpowder still thick in the air. In those first light moments, the faint rays of sunshine held a hazy glow that masked the remnants of destruction from the fierce fighting of D-Day only a day prior. The sounds of distant artillery echoed like thunder off the small houses, their whitewashed walls pockmarked and stained, bearing witness to the relentless scourge of battle as the sun climbed higher, illuminating a battlefield scattered with horrors and remnants of a shattered world. The village's fate hinged upon the coming hours. Sergeant James "Jimmy" McCarthy crouched behind the battered stone wall that led into the heart of Carantan. The pungent scent of earth turned to blood lingered heavily on his senses. He was a stocky man in his mid-20s, with an earnest face marred by fear and adrenaline. Last night had been haunting, a night where courage seemed just a breath away. In the moments before he had landed on the beach at Omaha, as waves crashed against the jagged cliffs, he had thought of home, of the swaying trees in his small Virginia town, and how far removed they seemed now. He had promised himself that he would survive. Now, over a year later, every minute felt like a battle against that promise, especially in a place where his every instinct screamed to flee. He glanced sideways at Private Walter "Wally" Crawford, his youngest soldier, barely 18, who held his rifle as if it were an extension of his own body. Wally's wide, innocent eyes were filled not just with fear, but a tangible resolve, a determination to live long enough to tell his story, to return to his parents and let them know he was safe. Their bond, forged in the chaos of Normandy, was built on snatched words of reassurance and quiet nods amidst the clamor of rocket fire. For Wally, this was not just war, it was a terrifying rite of passage. As dawn fully broke, they joined other soldiers from the 101st Airborne Division as they surveyed their landscape, a treacherous amalgam of ruined homes and shattered lives. The mission that day was centered on taking control of the vital crossroads that ran through Carantan, essential for the Allies to mount a successful push inland. Intelligence reports suggested that the German forces, though reeling from the invasion, still held strong positions throughout the town. The stakes were high. If they could capture Carantan, they would take a critical step toward linking the beachhead to the liberated cities. The plan unfolded in hurried whispers over a breakfast that was little more than stale bread and bitter coffee. Lieutenant Graham, their unflinching leader, a man who wore his stress like shadows under his eyes, gathered everyone in a sallow field just out of sight of the town. Maps were strewn across makeshift tables, detailing the positions of the German troops, diagrams outlining detailed routes for an assault. As he spoke, Jimmy caught himself wishing Lieutenant Graham would reveal a secret strategy that would give them the upper hand. But war was unyielding in its caution and predictability. Courage is key today, Lieutenant Graham reminded them. Determination hard and steady. We have a job to do. We take this town, or die trying. Hold on to each other out there. Those words echoed in Jimmy's mind as they positioned themselves not far from a broken fence that appeared to have been ravaged by the ferocity of the previous day's fighting. It served as both a barrier and a gateway, the first line of defense against what lay ahead. The air thickened with anticipation as they held their breath, listening to the faint rustle of movement from the German lines within the town. Suddenly, a cacophony erupted in the distance. Gunfire sliced through the air like a knife, and the sound of falling debris struck like lightning across their field. The shooting appeared sporadic at first, like a warm-up before the main event, and as the rumble of artillery grew near, terror turned into action. Lieutenant Graham barked orders, and the men sprang from cover. It was as though time stretched and twisted in that moment, each heartbeat feeling like an eternity. Jimmy leapt forward, adrenaline coursing through his veins, though terror tugged at the seams of his resolve. The battlefield inched closer, the faint outlines of Germans visible through pockmarked walls, their weapons poised as the first wave of American soldiers surged forward. The din of gunfire drowned out every thought, every doubt. The world crystallized into a sharp focus of fear and clarity. The first shot rang out, a crack that pierced the early morning calm. In an instant, Jimmy felt the jarring impact of the bullet that struck a fellow soldier beside him. It sent waves of horror coursing through him, fear tugging at his gut. He had seen loss before, but the brutality of it bore down heavily, reminding him of the fragility of life here in this cursed land. He pressed on, fists clenched, moving through the chaos like a man possessed. Wally was right behind him. They ducked and dove, the sky thickening with swirling smoke and the pungent stench of burning metal. The sounds of artillery exploded through the air, deafening and all-consuming. Jimmy turned his head just in time to see Wally fumble as shrapnel flew closer, the fear in his eyes echoing Jimmy's own. "Stay low," he shouted, his voice barely making it through the din. The two pressed on, both driven by a dauntless courage that pushed them forward even as lifeless forms littered the street. Mismatched faces turned to the sky. They found cover against the side of a shattered storefront. It was a bakery, perhaps, once filled with the sweet scent of freshly made bread, now burned and desolate. Blood seeped into the cracks of the pavement, the abomination of war, making every step an agonizing crawl toward victory. "Keep moving. Push up," Lieutenant Graham yelled, words strained but resolute. The man clawed through the clutches of chaos, moving onward with an almost superhuman resolve, even as his men fell around him. With a grim determination, Jimmy and Wally pressed onward, the gunfire now like a symphony of despair, composing an elegy for the brave souls brave enough to fight. Azimuths of sniping shots crisscrossed above them, the Germans adjusting their aim as American troops tried to flank around the building. "Cover me," Jimmy shouted, drawing his rifle and peering through the sights. A flurry of bullets erupted toward the bakery. Wally pushed down on the ground, covering his friend with everything he had. Just for a moment, Jimmy's heart stalled as he prepared to click the rifle's safety off, camaraderie forming a bridge to their survival. With steely resolve, he took aim, emptying several rounds toward the German stronghold as adrenaline surged through him. In moments, he was wholly lost to the fray of fighting, the exchange of fire ripping apart the stillness of the morning. They were trapped, and he knew it, but failure was not an option. The Allies needed this victory, and on that clamorous field, he could either fight for it or succumb to the clutches of despair. Surrounded by the smell of gunfire and death, he spotted an older soldier pinned behind a crumbling wall, his face a mask of pain and panic. Jimmy felt an inherent pull towards him, a sense of duty that he couldn't shake. "Wally, cover me," he called out, plunging into newfound vigor. As the younger soldier aimed at the Germans, Jimmy dashed toward the older man, grabbing his arm to help him to his feet. "Let's move," he shouted, the urgency of his voice cutting through the chaos. But fate has a way of rewriting every script. Just as they turned to escape towards safety, a bomb fell nearby, with a deafening roar. The shockwave pushed them off their feet, sending Jimmy sprawling against the unforgiving earth, the taste of blood filling his mouth, the world flashing in and out of focus. "Jimmy!" Wally's voice reached him, laced with panic. The echo of the battlefield faded into sounds of water flowing in his ears, and for a moment he couldn't tell if he was swimming or drowning. Slowly, the fog around him began to clear, the sun leaping back into focus. Around him he saw Wally, splayed out beside him, tears glistening in his eyes, and his fellow soldiers rallying in a concerted effort to push back against the encroaching doom. But it wasn't just adrenaline anymore, it was fear, inexplicable fear, a fear that spoke of loss, not just of life but of everything they treasured, of the lives they wished to return to. Gathering his strength, he staggered to his feet, body bruising from the blow that left him disoriented. He charged forward again, pulling Wally with him, the icy grip of chaos spurring them onward. "Come on, we have to flank left," Jimmy said, leading them into a deeper part of the alleyway. Each step into darkness felt like a step into the unknown, but he wouldn't let go. Two souls bound together, growing stronger through agony. He peeked around a corner, heart racing as the German lines came into view, trenches filled with men who hadn't taken leave of their preparation for the assault. The sight ignited fury in him, an earnest rage that spread from his core and through his limbs. He raised his rifle and began firing, giving all he had in that moment, praying he was making a difference before the tide overcame him. But the strokes of fate demanded a heavy price. A shot pierced through the air, striking Wally in the shoulder. The young soldier stumbled backward, gasping in shock, eyes wide as pain surged through him. He fell heavily to the ground, the color draining from his face. "Wally!" "No!" Jimmy screamed, his heart breaking as he dropped to the ground beside him. Time slowed, the chaos around them dissolving into a blur as he applied pressure to the wound, desperately trying to stop the blood from pouring onto the dirt. I'm okay, Jimmy," Wally stammered through gritted teeth, his familiar boyish bravado now flickering like an extinguished flame. "We'll get out of here. Just hold on." "No, you're not okay. We need a medic." Frantically, Jimmy glanced around, scanning the field for help. Was it possible he could save him? Could he turn the tide of fate with his hands alone? Every thread of hope plummeted as he realized that all he could offer was a semblance of comfort in the depths of despair. The gunfire around them continued, the world swirling in frantic motion amidst the cries of men and the shrieks of artillery. Each round felt closer, each second stretched into eternity as he held Wally's face in his hands. The life flickered there, the vibrancy of youth dimming, shadows crowding in. "Keep your eyes on me, Wally. Just breathe. Focus on me," Jimmy said, panic threatening to break his voice. He felt the relentless pressure of war closing in like a noose, tightening around their hearts. The urge to flee mingled with the imploring need to remain, to fight for every soul left breathing. "I'm tired, Jimmy," Wally whispered, the pain lacing his voice deeper than the wound that marred him. "I just want to go home." Those words slashed through Jimmy like a blade, wrapping around the threads that held him together. The very thing they had fought for, the home, safety, love filled the hollow spaces where dread had taken root. "Not now, Wally. Not yet. We're going to get through this, together." In that fleeting moment, with explosions around them, and a storm of chaos beckoning. He grasped his friend's hand in a fervent, desperate hold. For an instant, the brutality of war slipped away, replaced by the purity of their bond. He thought of the dreams Wally had shared, how he wanted to finish school, to travel, to find love. Each moment was heavy with remembrance, each heartbeat a reminder of the life teetering on the edge. But time was an unforgiving master. The gasping breaths of Wally began to falter, the boy who once trembled from the weight of life, now ready to surrender to sleep. The distant echoes around them were lost amidst fading consciousness. "Stay with me," Jimmy begged, desperation rising in him like a tide. "Just hold on, for me." Through the curtain of chaos, he could feel Wally's grip weakening. It was as if a thread was unwinding, and every plea he made fed that thread to the void. The young soldier's eyes fluttered closed, and Jimmy felt warm tears pour forth, heat glistening on his cheeks, an ache that neither time nor war could erase. "Wally," he cried, but there was no answer, nothing but the relentless bombing and the echoes of screams around them. The world had turned upside down, and he alone was left to stand within the storm. He pressed on, the call to survive resonating within his being. Finally, he heard them, medics approaching, screaming for cover and safety as they rushed toward the wounded. As the medics fell upon them, he felt the dampness of Wally's blood staining his uniform, a bitter reminder of what he had fought to protect. "He needs help. Please, help him," his words spilled out, fueled by an instinct to save, to hold on to the piece of life that remained. They worked swiftly, highlighting the stark contrast between hope and despair amidst the chaos of killing. A medic whispered frantic orders, pressure bandages wrapped tightly as Wally was lifted towards safety. Jimmy's heart raced, hope plunging into dread as he watched. "Keep him alive," he shouted, knowing words could only do so much in the hands of fate. For a moment, he felt utterly helpless, pinned under the weight of sorrow even as survival surged around him. But amidst the anguish, victory surged in, the Allies storming through, penetrating German lines like lightning, the momentum shifting in valiant swells. The Americans advanced in slow, steady waves, pushing the Germans back, pushing forward to seize the town they so desperately needed. Jimmy fought back his tears as he watched Wally disappear from view, borne away to safety. Hope was a fragile thing, yet it pulsed within him, igniting an unshakable resolve. They would push through this hell, together or apart. It did not matter. Freedom rang loud in their spirits, a faster rhythm of vengeance coursing through their veins, propelling them onward toward a future forged from pain. The battle raged on, but as friends fell and comrades rose, the tide began to swell. The cries of the dying faded into a symphony of survival. The remnants of loss mingled with the wild spirit of courage. Colors danced in the air, red and black, beneath the relentless sun that bore witness to their struggle. Days turned to weeks, and as the Allies held firm against the German onslaught, the town of Carantan fell under their control. Within that turmoil, Jimmy's heart beat, for the knowledge of loss deepened beyond comprehension, yet seared with determination to remember those who had passed, the Wallys of the world forever lost in a fray, becoming part of the history they fought to preserve. Weeks later, sitting in silence under the stars, those dreams of home were ever vivid, filtering down through the night sky in glimmers of memories both bright and dim. War was a sorrowful burden, but woven within that fabric were threads of laughter and resilience, dreams of a future altered but not extinguished. Somewhere in that heartache lay the strength to carry on, gifting the world with stories written by those who dare to remember, stories worth telling, a tapestry of their sacrifices, forever imprinted in the ebb and flow of history. Carantan would be remembered, not just as a battlefield scarred by pain, but also as the birthplace of courage against tyranny, where hope had made a stand, where bonds of brotherhood forged in fire echoed through time. The quest may have been overshadowed by bloodshed, yet it was fueled by a yearning to reclaim what was lost, a determination to survive in the memory of fallen friends, whispering echoes launching forward, onward to the heart of freedom.